When did you realize you weren't a child anymore? When an adult tried to make small talk about the weather with me. Pulled up to a Sheetz near the high school I went to in the middle of the afternoon, and there were a bunch of HS kids hanging out front, and my first thought was, why are all these kids just hanging out here? I was like 25 and felt like I was 65 when I thought that. When I moved my bed to the middle of the room, instead of the corner. I had graduated university, had a place of my own and a job, and was out doing some shopping. It occurred to me that I could and probably should just go ahead and buy some beer and some cookies, not for any kind of event or occasion, but just so I have them in stock at home. I wasn't planning to go home and drink 10 beers and eat a bag of cookies. I didn't even want either of them that day. I was just living a normal life and thought it would be good to have that stuff in stock. 27 and still not sure. When I asked for a Swiffer wet jet as a birthday present. When I had financial freedom from my parents, and began to struggle, that garbage hits you like a brick wall. When my spouse gave me a nose hair shaver for my birthday. When I realized that I am going bald already, at least I have no problem growing a non-patchy beard, so I became the typical bald guy with a beard. Edit, fixed patch beard to patchy beard. When I realized I could eat Nutella for dinner and no one would say a word. I remember it clearly. I had just moved into my first apartment 1,000 miles from my hometown alone, got everything moved in and set up, didn't have much then, a bed, a TV, a couch, that was pretty much it. I had a rough day at work, lots of complaining customers and "let me to talk to your supervisor" moments, and I was exhausted and emotionally drained. I opened the door to my apartment and there was silence, no noise from siblings, no parents sitting on the couch watching TV, no friends waiting to hang out. Just the oppressing silence of an empty apartment with nothing on the walls, the kind of silence that echoes when you sigh. I stood in my doorway and had the realization that I'm alone in a big city with no support system, friends, or family to help me if things don't work out. It was a lot to take in all at once. Edit, wow, rip my inbox. Thank you for the gold, kind strangers. TBH, I keep having such moments. I mean, I'm all grown up, married and mom of 3 kids, but from time to time something comes along reminding me I'm not a kid anymore, and not just the big ones like buying our first house or a new car, but simple things like making my son's breakfast, and realizing now I'm the big one, or going grocery shopping and being able to buy whatever I want, and then not doing so cause it's the adult thing to do. Edit, I'm a mom smiley face. When I realized that it costs money just to exist. I had recently moved into my first apartment and just loaded up on groceries at the store, checked the mail when I got home and discovered my first water and electric gas bills. I remember thinking, it is going to cost me money to exist for the rest of my life. Taking care of my dad, end-of-life care, funeral arrangements and all the weird stuff you never think about until it happens, like canceling bills, clearing the house, etc. All that, and being the go-to person for friends and family who wanted to know how he's doing, what's happening next. Edit, I'm in absolute floods of tears reading your stories, such a heart-wrenchingly beautiful moment of Reddit solidarity. I hadn't seen my dad or known where he was until a few months before he died. He got in touch just as he was getting ill. He never managed to maintain friendships or relationships, so when the time came, I was one of just 2 people who cared. I dealt with this all in what I considered to be a pretty matter-of-fact way, have developed a heart of steel over the years, so yeah, reading your comments has certainly made me realize I feel a whole lot more than I thought I did. Huge love to you Reddit family and those who have been on a similar journey too. When a little girl walked past me and said to her mother, "I like that lady's scarf, lady." I got the flu and vomited all over my room. I knew I was no longer a child when I was also the one to clean it despite feeling like hell. Edit, thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Look at my comment, all shiny. Edit 2. Also, I am really enjoying all the vomit stories coming straight to my replies box. Keep them coming, they range from sweet to hilarious. Dropped my keys in a grocery store and a little girl scurried over before I could pick them up. She looked proud as punch for saving me from picking something up that was way down there on the floor. I wanted to hug her and smack her at the same time. It's official, I'm old now, sad face. When people I meet started to take me way too serious. One day I woke up and I was married and had a mortgage, not sure when all that happened. When I realized life isn't about me anymore. When being ill became an annoyance. As a kid, you get pampered by your parents and get to stay home from school. As an adult, the responsibilities you have don't magically go away anymore, so you're both miserable and stressed out. When I started taking care of my family or friends. When you're a kid, you're so used to being taken care of. When I was 13 I found an old box. I realized I hadn't played pretend in ages, so for the hell of it I sat down in the box and tried to see if I still could. I realized that while I was still an imaginative person, I could no longer see the scenarios and stories I used to play act in my head as a kid. When I pretended to be a princess, goddernit, I could practically see the marble halls and unicorns around me. I couldn't anymore, made me cry haha. At 22, after my family passed away, I went from being a college student worrying about finals to suddenly making end-of-life care decisions and being the executor of their combined estate. I definitely struggled through the first few years, but things really started to click when I turned 25. Because of my experience handling my family's estate and learning how to manage assets, I turned out to be a pretty decent investor and ultimately found a career in finance BC of it. When I realized the adults in my life has no idea of what they were doing, they were just winging it. Finally, at probably the age of 20 or so, being able to get myself to eat okay food and have a semi-normal sleeping schedule and be able to complete basic tasks of life, finally. Now, I thought I was no longer a child, probably around 15 when I decided I knew all the real secrets of life and humanity, largely due to a single reading, and total misinterpretation of Camus' The Stranger. But then I went to college, almost at the age of majority and voting, and I realized I could not function on my own for even the smallest things in life. I couldn't do my homework on time, I couldn't get to sleep at a decent hour and get enough sleep to function the next day, I was eating horrible food that was horrible for me. I think there were days where I ate nothing but sugared cereal, ramen, and cookie dough, many days. I could not figure out how to get through day-to-day life and still be able to do my own laundry. It would pile up so much and stress me out to the point where I started having sort of magical thinking that if I didn't put the worn clothes in the laundry bag, basket, hamper and just let them air out, they would be okay to wear in a day or two. I'm serious, I could not even eat or sleep in a way that allowed me to function as a human without the guidance of my parents, who were very hands-off to begin with. I went off to college convinced I was basically an adult. Once I got there I realized I was basically an infant. Edit, for those asking how I am doing now, thanks, I'm more than fine. This was a long time ago and I am many jobs and graduate degrees into my life and a fully functional adult with a family of my own. For those asking how I got out of that mess, I finally realized around my junior year that maybe I should be focused more on studying at school than socializing. I moved out of the dorms that enabled all that bad behavior and moved into a house with roommates, laundry, and a real kitchen. I focused on my school work and the sleep schedule that would be better for that rather than chasing fear of missing out all the time. I socialized with the time I had left over and it was plenty. I liked school much more and felt like I was getting my money's worth. I stopped being so depressed because of lack of sleep, crappy food, and living in the dark playground of procrastination all the time. When bedtime becomes a luxury, not a chore. I had a pulmonary embolism at 21. I sat in the waiting room for 12 hours because they didn't realize what it was at first. Then they began asking me for my social security number and all of this other information and trying to convince me to pay for my service now so I could save 25% off my total bill. Meanwhile I'm sitting here not being able to breathe and feeling woozy and in a lot of pain. I had just gotten out of school and was working part-time, and after this pulmonary embolism I wasn't able to work for a few months. A month of that was spent in the hospital. But that didn't stop them from coming after me. I did everything I could to pay off my bill. Eventually I did. So imagine my surprise when I had a police officer show up at my work and serve me. That's when I found out that hospitals have different departments that charge you separately, so while I paid off the radiology department, the physician's bill wasn't paid and as such they sued me. I think that's when I fully realized that I was an adult and that the world was full of adults whose sole purpose in life was to pull money out of my wallet. The first time I called my parents with a problem I needed help with and they just gave me an, "Ah, that sucks, talk to you later." 22nd birthday, got home from work. No one was home, no cake or balloons waiting, no family waiting with a birthday dinner. I just walked to Papa Murphy's, got my favorite pizza, walked home, and ate alone. I grew up in a big family. 5 older siblings, aunts and uncles always over. It was the first time I was just alone on my birthday. What do you mean? Are you implying that I'm not a child anymore? I'm clearly still a child, and if you don't believe me, ask my wife. She'll back me up on this. My mom told me she couldn't call to make appointments for me anymore or handle my medical, legal business since I'm too old, fluffed me up, was so confused since I was coddled for way too long. Almost 21 and still learning how to make professional phone calls.